Graham could never forget 2 days of his life. One when he was blessed with a lovely daughter Savannah, and the second when he heard about Dana's death. His mind often wandered to the day of Dana's death and how she never returned home to her safe haven. Graham had met Dana at the university. They both had the same classes and were pursuing their MBBS. Dana and Graham were eager to finish their degrees, complete their house job, and move to New York to work at reputable hospitals. They were best friends, and after they had completed their house job, they decided to get married and move to New York. Everything was going according to their plan. Both of them had landed well-paying jobs in good hospitals. Graham and Dana had everything that they ever wished for. They had a successful career, a loving life partner, and a beautiful apartment that they set together. The only thing that was missing from their life was a baby. The couple planned the baby, and Dana gave birth to a beautiful daughter in the 3rd year of their marriage. They decided to name her Savannah, but as soon as the baby opened her eyes, Dana and Graham were shaken. Savannah had Down syndrome. Dana was shocked because nothing was diagnosed in her ultrasounds and monthly checkups. Graham was shocked too, but it didn't lessen his love for Savannah. In fact, he swore to take care of his daughter even more and try his best to give her a normal life. Dana and Graham decided to move to Portland, Oregon, where Graham's mother lived. They wanted to spend more time with Savannah and needed the help of family members to raise her. Upon arriving in Portland, Dana was nervous about how Graham's mother, Rose, would react to Savannah's Down syndrome. Graham had told her over the phone about Savannah's birth and their plan to move to Portland to raise their child. Rose was excited to see her granddaughter and help Graham raise her. When Rose saw her granddaughter, she was flabbergasted. "This child is not normal. Everyone in our family was normal. It must be Dana's problematic genes they transferred into her," Rose exclaimed angrily. As Dana heard these words, tears started rolling from her eyes. She looked at Graham, who hugged her and told his mom, "Mom, this is not fair. You are unreasonably mean to my wife and daughter. Savannah is normal. Having Down syndrome doesn't make her disabled." Rose's anger did not subside. She hated Savannah when she looked at her. Dana and Graham settled into their new life in Portland for the next few months. Dana's family helped them settle down and take care of Savannah, while the couple worked at the hospital. But Rose cut all ties with his son. She demanded her son leave his wife and disabled daughter, but Graham chose to leave his mother and stay with his daughter till the end of his life. On one unfortunate event, Dana went out with her family for a road trip and never returned. The car skid off the road, fell into a ditch, and caught fire. The entire family died, and no one survived. Graham was shocked when he heard the news. He thought that he would go insane without her beloved Dana. He cried like a baby and wanted to end his life to reunite with his wife. But then, he heard the soft cries of his baby lying peacefully in the cot. Graham went to her and hugged her tightly. He felt sad for his daughter, that she would have to grow up without Dana. From that day onwards, Graham dedicated his life to his little angel, who saved him from going into depression. Graham had promised himself that he'll keep all the suicidal thoughts away for his life and focus only on his daughter's happiness. 4 years later, Graham had been promoted to the post of senior doctor. He was responsible for managing the team of doctors in the cancer department. Even with the increased workload, Graham never neglected Savannah. He always made time for her and took care of her. But with the promotion and long working hours, he realized he won't be able to take care of Savannah. Thus, he decided to take help from his mom, Rose. Reluctantly, he called his mom and requested that she shift to his house to take care of his daughter. Rose was surprised to receive a call from his son after 4 years. She thought, with Dana dead, it would be easier for her to force Graham to abandon his daughter. Her evil mind plotted a plan to get rid of Savannah once and for all. Hence, she agreed and apologized for her behavior in the past. She made Graham believe that she had changed and loves Savannah. Graham was happy that Rose had accepted his daughter. The next day, Rose shifted into Graham's house. She took all the details of Savannah's schedule, allergies, activities, etc., to make Graham fall for her act. "All right, Graham, you can count on me. I'll treat your daughter like a princess. Don't worry," she said when Graham left for work. Rose took great care of Savannah for a few weeks, and Graham was convinced that his mother had changed. "Mom, thank you so much for taking care of Savannah. I'm glad that I can trust you with her." Graham hugged her mother and thanked her. The next day, Rose waited for Graham to leave so she could finally hurt Savannah and remove her from Graham's life. Rose knew that Savannah was allergic to peanuts, and if she ate them, she had to be rushed to the hospital. So she decided to end her life by baking her fresh peanut butter cookies. Savannah loved warm cookies, so she instantly ate the cookie. A few seconds later, Savannah was having trouble breathing. She called Rose for help. "Grandma, I'm not feeling good." Rose smiled and left her alone in the kitchen. A few moments later, Graham came inside the house to pick up his phone. When he saw his daughter sprawled on the floor with peanut butter cookies in her hand, he immediately took her to the hospital. Rose panicked and understood that her plan to kill Savannah had failed. She quickly went to the hospital and cried to Graham. "Graham, how is my princess? It's all my fault. I forgot about her peanut allergy. Please forgive me, son. Trust me, it was an accident." Graham looked at his mother's tears, and his anger subsided. "It's okay, Mom. I am glad I returned and rushed her to the hospital immediately." Graham had become extra cautious of her safety. He explained to her mother everything from scratch about Savannah's condition. He pasted the list of allergies on the fridge door so that his mother wouldn't forget. Rose knew that she had to think of some other way to remove Savannah from her son's life so that he could start dating again and live a normal life instead of wasting on his abnormal daughter. Rose was looking for an opportunity to kick her granddaughter out of his son's house and life. A few weeks later, Rose got the opportunity she was desperately waiting for. "Mom, I have to go to New Jersey for a conference. Will you be able to take care of Savannah for 2 days? I'll try to be back soon," Graham told Rose, who couldn't help but rejoice at the perfect opportunity. "Sure, Graham. Savannah and I will have a great time." She smiled at Graham. Graham wasn't comfortable leaving Savannah with his mother, especially when she forgot about Savannah's allergy to peanuts. But he had no other option. He decided that he would return in a day and wouldn't spend 2 days in New Jersey. The next morning, Savannah hugged Graham tightly. She started crying and didn't want her father to leave. "Dad, please don't go. I feel scared," little Savannah cried. Graham hugged her and kissed her forehead. "I'll be back soon, my darling. Daddy will bring lots of gifts for you," Graham tried consoling her. When Graham left, Rose didn't waste a minute and wanted to execute her devilish plan immediately. "Savannah, darling, let's go to your favorite park." She held Savannah's little hand and walked out of her house. Rose took the car to the shady area of the city. She glanced at Savannah, terrified to be in a new place. "Where are we going, Granny?" she innocently asked her grandma. Rose got furious and slapped the little girl with all her might. "Keep quiet, you imbecile! You have made our lives hell! I wish your mother had taken you with her when she died!" Savannah cried and was extremely scared of Rose. Rose parked the car near an orphanage. She stopped the car, opened the door, and pulled Savannah out of the car. "Your daddy is waiting for you inside. Go there. He'll take you with him," she ordered the little girl. Savannah excitedly ran towards the orphanage, and Rose quickly got inside the car and escaped. She had to execute the second part of the plan to fake Savannah's death. Luckily, she had hidden Savannah's favorite doll in the car, which she would use today. She drove to Trillium Lake. She was exhausted from all the driving, but had to continue to complete her plan. When Rose arrived at the lake, she increased the speed of her car and pushed it into the water. She was afraid when the car started to sink. She quickly opened the door and swam to the surface. Many people gathered to help her, and she started screaming and crying. "Someone, please save my granddaughter. She's in the car. She needs help." A few lifeguards dove into the water, but couldn't find anything except for a stuffed doll lying on the car's floor. Rose continued her drama of screaming and crying. People felt sorry for her loss. The police arrived at the scene and contacted Graham. He was astounded to hear about the incident. He told the police officer that he would go to Portland as soon as possible. Rose was dropped home by a police officer to ensure that she reached safely. When Rose stepped inside the house, she shrieked in happiness. She finally fooled everyone and made them believe that Savannah had drowned and her body was nowhere to be found in the lake. The police were looking for the body. Graham came to Portland the next morning. His eyes were red and swollen, and he looked depressed. He went directly to Trillium Lake and wondered why his mother would bring Savannah here. She was too young to be here. He asked the police officer about their findings, but he couldn't find any clue about Savannah. When the officers handed him the doll, he collapsed on the ground and cried his heart out. He missed Dana terribly. 1 week had passed since Savannah went missing. Rose had implied several times to Graham that his daughter was dead, and he should hold a memorial service. But Graham replied curtly, "My Savannah is not dead. She is alive, because if she's dead, where's her body?" Rose became silent, but was confident that Graham would soon forget about her daughter. 1 more week passed, and Graham was losing his patience. He decided to find his daughter by himself. The police had refused to help him as they considered that she had died in the lake. So, Graham promised himself to find his daughter. He contacted all the hospitals in the city to check if someone had dropped her there, But there was no clue about his daughter. His world was turning dark, and he started getting suicidal thoughts. Graham had already lost his appetite and become an insomniac. One night, he picked up the sleeping pills when the pain was too much to handle. He stared at it for a few minutes and decided to empty the entire bottle and end his life. He closed his eyes for a moment, and then it struck him. He had installed a GPS in his car. He could use it to retrieve the data of the day when the car slipped into the water. He quickly got up and noted every location where the car had been. He grabbed his keys and left the house at 2 a.m. He followed the map and was surprised to see that Rose had taken Savannah into a shady area. He then parked his car near an orphanage. It was beyond Graham's understanding why would his mother bring Savannah here, but he soon found all the answers to his endless questions. He knocked at the door, and a grumpy old lady answered. "What are you doing here at this time?" she asked Graham. "I am looking for my daughter, Savannah." He showed Savannah's picture on his mobile to the lady. The lady looked at Graham and nodded her head. Graham felt that he had been given a new life. The lady took Graham inside a shabby room where Savannah was weeping silently. Graham started crying after seeing her daughter. He scooped her up in his arms. "My princess, don't cry! Daddy is here!" Savannah hugged her father tightly as if never letting him go. Graham still couldn't wrap his head around how Savannah got here. He asked Savannah, "How did you come here?" The little girl replied, "Grandma slapped me and told me to come here because you were waiting for me." Graham couldn't believe that his mother would do such a monstrous thing to her granddaughter. He rushed home with Savannah and called the police. "Officers, arrest my mother. She's the one who dropped my daughter at an orphanage and then faked her death." Rose was arrested by the police and taken to the police station. Graham hugged Savannah and promised he would never allow Rose to hurt her. He moved from Portland to another city where no one could hurt his little princess.
Alex would never have thought that his life would end up this way. Attending college and getting a dream degree made Alex believe his life would improve, and right after university, he would find a job and settle. That plan, however, did not work out. Alex drove an Uber every day for over 12 hours and was often bored out of his mind. That a squirrel scampering across a road excited him. The job was quite dull, and it barely paid enough for Alex to be able to survive without starving himself to death. The one rule that Alex had no trouble following concerning his job was that he wasn't supposed to interfere with his customers' private lives. He never had the time, patience, or interest to listen to their stories and show any inclination to know more, especially since he had so much going on in his life. The countless jobs he had applied to had come back with a rejection letter, pushing Alex over the brink, questioning his existence and his will to live. He had no hope left to continue scouting for jobs. He accepted that driving an Uber and barely making enough to pay rent and fill his stomach was what his life had come to and would stay that way for his entire life, even though he put in more effort than anyone his age. The only good thing he was looking forward to was his corgi. His corgi, Milo, had been the best thing to happen to him in his entire life. Not that there were a lot of other life events that he could use as a comparison. His family had died in a car accident when he was just 13, resulting in him having to jump from one foster home to another until he was 18 and had enough money to get an apartment. It wasn't an apartment you would find in a magazine. It was a run-down block of old buildings with more walls with moss than he had ever seen in his life. He lived in the apartment for 7 years, not having the financial freedom to shift to another place that would be slightly better than the dumpster. One night, as the rain beat down on the dark streets with dimly lit streetlights that cast an eerie glow, distorting the road, his lonely life flipped. Like any other day, Alex drove through the city picking up customers, trying to portray himself as a happy-go-lucky guy and dropping those people off at destinations he wished were his final home. The entire day had been exhausting. His morning started with a rude customer who thought they had the right to treat Alex like he was below them. Unless he wanted to lose his job, Alex couldn't do much except listen and try to respond as calmly as he could. Alex couldn't wait to go home and sleep on his couch until he had to wake up and continue the tedious process again. However, the last ride of the day changed his plans. Not just for the day, but for his life. He had been waiting to pick up the customer and drop them off at their location without indulging in a conversation. He had developed the habit of tapping his index and middle fingers on the steering wheel as a distraction. All that changed when a girl who looked roughly 19 hopped, sobbing, into the car, asking to be dropped off at a house on the other side of town. She kept looking back towards the place she was picked up from. It reminded him of a fearful animal that would glance behind to ensure the predator hadn't followed it. Ensuring he followed the rules of his work, Alex did not intrude despite being aware that something was wrong. It was hard, very hard, to stay silent. His eyes would move to his rearview mirror to see the girl's state. "He hit me again, Lily. I can't do it anymore. I don't know how much longer I can handle all of this." The girl sobbed into her phone. Her hand trembled with fear. Every word she uttered after that had Alex hooked, and he couldn't help but eavesdrop once he had gotten a good look at how she shivered when she spoke. All he wanted to do was give her the warmest hug he could muster and tell her everything would be okay. As he contemplated the best possible course of action, he decided offering water to the girl wouldn't do any harm, so that's exactly what he did. He grabbed a new water bottle on his dashboard and handed it to the girl without saying anything. She mumbled, "Thank you," before quietly sobbing into her phone. Finally, calm enough to form coherent sentences, she started explaining what had happened over the night to the speaker on the other end. Alex couldn't help but listen to the conversation. The girl's name was Hazel, which Alex had picked up from his client's profile. While she spoke in broken sentences to who Alex assumed was a friend, he could briefly gauge what Hazel was going through. Yeah, he hit me this time. I know, you did warn me. But what am I supposed to do, Lily? He's my father. I can't just abandon him. Yeah, I know. Well, because I didn't finish my chores. I know it's crazy, but my dad was drunk. Yeah, I will call you once I'm out of this Uber. She seemed shaken up by the events that played out, and Alex saw Hazel take deep breaths, trying to calm herself, and was a little satisfied to know that it was working. Seeing the girl in this state reminded him so much of himself and his experience in foster homes. The dark memories from foster care, or Alex's burning desire to help Hazel, eventually pushed him to break the one rule Uber drivers had to follow. Are you okay? Do you need anything?" he said awkwardly. Nothing, she stammered. And Alex didn't know if it was fear or the overwhelming amount of emotion she was going through. "I'm sorry, but I couldn't help but overhear your conversation." "I'm okay, just a little shaken up. Life at home isn't the greatest, and it got unbearable tonight. I had to leave," Hazel replied, sighing deeply, and for a moment, no one spoke. Alex wasn't sure if she would continue, and it seemed like Hazel was trying to calm her nerves by drinking the entire bottle of water Alex had given her. After a few moments, Alex decided to break the silence by asking her if she wanted to confide in him, while letting her know he understood what coming from a broken family felt like, and maybe having someone who's gone through similar experiences listen would help. Alex seemed to be weighing the pros and cons of this, her eyes darting from her hands to Alex, until she finally sighed and nodded. "My mom died a year ago in a car accident. She was on her way to pick me up from cheer practice when a truck rammed into her, and she passed away right there. I guess my dad decided to blame me for her death, considering she was coming to pick me up. Honestly, sometimes I think he's not wrong." Alex noticed that Hazel's breath rate started getting quicker. He motioned for her to drink water while telling her to take deep breaths. Hazel continued with her story once she had taken a few deep breaths to regulate her breathing. "Over the months, he started getting aggressive towards me and made me clean the house and do chores for him that was never up to his expectations. It seems as if he's turning the grief of my mom dying into anger and directing all of it towards me." With tears running down her face, she told Alex how her dad used to be a nice, gentle guy and never expected him to turn against her. Hazel's knuckles went white as she crushed the empty bottle in her hand when she moved on to how abusive her father had become in the last few months. They continued to converse about how she dealt with all of this until they reached her location. Before getting out of the car, she thanked Alex for listening to her, and at that moment, Alex made a decision that changed his and her life. He asked Hazel for an address where they could send each other letters so that he could make sure she was safe. Exchanging addresses, Hazel got out of the car with a smile, her chest feeling light. It seemed as if both of them developed a sibling-like relationship where Alex felt the need to protect Hazel as if she was his little sister. And Hazel felt comforted by Alex, just like she imagined she would feel if she had an older brother. Unfortunately, she was an only child and had no siblings to support her. They started exchanging letters weekly, with Hazel giving Alex the details about her school life, her cheer competitions, and her life at home. Alex made sure to reply to every single letter, cheering Hazel on and motivating her to keep going, even though the situation at her house worsened over time. It gave both of them a sense of peace to know they had another person they could rely on in times of need. It was almost like an intermission, just a few seconds of light in their lives. But like all good must come to an end, their brief period of happiness was crushed when Hazel's father found out about the letters. "I'm so stupid," Hazel thought when she came home to realize that she hadn't picked up the letters in the mailbox before leaving for school. Now her dad sat on the sofa in front of the door with the letter she had received this morning opened on the table in front of him, along with all the other letters she had kept in her drawer. He sucked in air through gritted teeth, a sign he was furious. His cheeks were flushed red from the multiple drinks he had had. "What is all of this, Hazel? Who is this man you're talking to?" All she could do was fall to her knees, apologizing and crying for forgiveness. She knew her dad was more furious that she had told someone else about his actions, and now he would never let her send another letter again. When her dad returned to his room, Hazel picked herself up from the floor, went to her room, and started packing her bag. She sent what she believed to be her last letter to Alex. "Alex, this isn't an ordinary letter. My dad found out about the letters we have been exchanging, and now I will never be able to send another one again. This will be the last one. Please look after yourself and don't worry about me. I'll be fine. I'll figure out how to survive. I always do. Please don't reply to this, Alex. I'll get in trouble. Thank you for always being there for me. I'll never forget you. H." As she scribbled the last line, tears splotched the previous line, and all she could think of was if Alex would be able to read the letter. Days go by with no communication between the two. Hazel continued with her life the same as before she met Alex, even though there was a void in her life that she couldn't fill. However, Alex couldn't think straight since he got Hazel's letter telling him not to contact her again. He did not know if she was safe and didn't feel comfortable letting her stay there without any knowledge of her well-being. Alex was driving home when he abruptly made a sharp U-turn and went opposite. His mind filled with determination, he decided to stop by Hazel's house and see how she was doing for himself. He tried to remain patient and forget about her, but those few weeks were the best weeks of his life, and all he wanted was to get that back. Fortunately for Hazel and Alex, Hazel's dad wasn't home when she opened the door to Alex standing on her doorstep. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her eyes wide with shock. "I had to see if you were okay. I was worried," Alex replied, shaking and ruffling his hair. Hazel invited Alex inside since her dad was going to be out late and explained every detail of what had happened the day her dad found the letters. "It got bad. I don't think I can go through it again. That's why I decided to stop sending any letters. I'm sorry for making you worried." Alex felt a sense of anger wash over him as he realized what Hazel, someone he considered his younger sister, was going through while living here. "You must leave, Hazel. It's not safe for you to stay here." He convinced Hazel to leave the house, going to the spare house that she went to when they first met. It took a while to get the point across, but Alex understood how scary the situation might be for her and gave her time to decide while he prepared tea for her. "Okay." A voice echoed through the house and reached him. Hazel had agreed to escape this broken home. Alex helped her pack her bags while she wrote a note for her dad, explaining that she could no longer live here and needed to leave to keep herself sane. Settling in the passenger seat of his car, Alex managed to drop Hazel off at her new house. She got off with the promise that she would continue writing, letting him know she was okay. That night, as Hazel lay in bed without her father looming over her, threatening her with death, she felt at ease, knowing that someone loved her. Alex lay on his couch, and for the first time in so many years, he slept with the happiness that someone was out there who cared for him. Even if his life hadn't gotten better financially, there was someone who was emotionally there for him. It was the cry that tore her heart. The pains she had felt earlier didn't give way to joy when the little bundle showed up. In its place loomed this dark feeling. She could almost feel it. The cry felt familiar. It was like one dragged into life forcefully. Every ball of the child made Diana's heart leap. No, it wasn't for joy. She laid back, her head resting on the pillow in deep thought as the midwife got the child cleaned up. "Dear Lord, let it not be a girl." Diana mouthed the words. Her agony didn't start that day. It started a long time ago, 4 births before now. Dr. Patrick told her the baby was doing all right. Dr. Matilda had assured her that the child looked hale and hearty. It was growing well, and its vitals were all right. Dr. Ben said there was no sign of anything wrong with the child. It was well positioned and was waiting to open its eyes to the world. There was nothing wrong with its weight, as it was superb and was growing just fine. Dr. Jerry said the girl was doing just fine. There was no sign of ill health. Her heart functioned normally. Her pulse was okay. Nothing wrong with her lungs, and her brain was developing amazingly well. It all ended the same way. One moment playing, laughing, and telling a story. Then, the very next, dead. The first one took her by surprise. Or could that be used to describe the grief of a mother who watched a child grow from pink gums to a mouth full of teeth and laughter? For what Diana felt was more than grief. It was like an eternal pain at the lower left part of her heart that wouldn't just go away. Some nights, Dave would hold her by the hand as they walked the sandy shores of Villano Beach, listening to the seagulls and sometimes watching as the Atlantic Ocean crashed at their feet. Some days or nights, when Dave worked the shift, Diana would sit and stare longingly at the ocean. The second child came a year and 6 months later. Diana didn't know she was pregnant. She had seen her cycle at the usual time. The pain in her heart still pinched once in a while, and the ocean side still had her feet digging through the white sand. It was a sunny day at the beach. She usually came to the beach with work, working remotely as a freelancer. She had closed her laptop, dropped it in her bag, and taken the short walk to Anastasia Plaza. She needed a chilled cocktail badly. As she made her way past the row of shops, it struck her. A dose of dizziness hit her, and everything went black before she could regain her balance. When Diana came around, she was already in Flagler Hospital. The doctor was checking her vitals. It was Dr. Matilda. "Welcome back, Diana," Dr. Matilda said with a smile. "What happened?" Diana asked weakly, her head still light from the faint. "You fainted. You were brought in here by a couple. I was at the ER when they brought you in, so I assigned myself to you. Your vitals are all right, too. Have you been thinking a lot lately?" Dr. Matilda asked with a warm smile while her brow knitted in worry. "Not much. I have been concentrating on work," Diana responded. At that exact moment, a nurse walked in with a folder. She gave Diana the everyday nurse look of care with a short smile before facing Dr. Matilda. "It's ready," she said as she handed the folder to the doctor. The doctor peered at it briefly before turning to look at Diana. "Congratulations, Mrs. Dave. You're 8 weeks gone." Diana was surprised. She hadn't thought. She felt she had just started eating much because her body wanted to grow again after staying off food involuntarily. She looked at the doctor with her mouth slightly open. If she was 8 weeks pregnant, that means... I saw my monthly flow a couple of weeks back, and it isn't 8 weeks yet, Diana started to say. I know, it happens sometimes. It is called spotting. You may think you're seeing your period, but it was implantation taking place. I guess that was what happened to you. Congratulations to you. Your appointments with me have been booked, and a message was sent to Dave. He would be here any minute from now. And true to her words, the door opened, and a worried Dave walked in. His brows were raised in concern, and his hands stretched out to hug Diana. Baby, I came as soon as I was called, Dave said, kissing her on the head as she buried her face in his chest. Dr. Matilda smiled at the couple as she and the nurse exited. The same thing happened to this child. One moment she was there, and the next, she was gone. The house, a space that had once seen happy feet run up and down the stairs and bounced off the couch in excitement, became quiet again. The pain that the child had taken away returned. It was another moment of long walks on the sandy beach and nights staring out of the window and into the night skies. Diana sometimes couldn't bring herself to go into Myra's room. It had first belonged to Kitara. Just thinking about how two little girls so full of life would suddenly complain of intense pain in the head and then drop dead made the tears flow freely. Having to explain to the new friends Myra made and the old ones that knew Kitara that Myra was gone too, as her sister numbed her. One thing stood out, though, the resemblance between the two girls. It was almost as if Kitara came back as Myra, but this time without the blue eyes. Her red-colored thin lips, slim chin bone, and contagious smile remained. Both girls were full of energy when they lived, so Diana felt their absence. The third and fourth came. Both didn't last 3 years and bore a resemblance to the ones before them. Like the grief that slowly ate away Diana, the home front had changed with each death in the family. Even though Dave still followed her on those long walks, she knew his mind wasn't there. It wasn't just him. Diana felt it too. Everything looked like a routine to her after long walks. The seagulls, the night skies. The peace brought her the pain in her chest, walking past the room and thinking of the dresses and toys they would have to give away to make room for a new set. Everything. It looked normal. Today you hear a child's laughter. Tomorrow, it is just you, alone in the house, watching the news or posting something on the blog you created. And what's worse, any act of passion that involves intense romance comes with a missed period. Dave spoke a lot less about children these days. His eyes were always sad. The few times he had spoken about children, he didn't say anything about trying again. Whenever Diana brought it up, he would find a way to switch off the conversation. He spoke more about sports, stocks, and going on a vacation in Japan. One day while watching a soccer match, a player had his wife and daughter come at the end of the game. This broke Dave. For the first time since the last time, and as Diana lay waiting for the midwife to bring the child, Dave cried. It was followed by an intense lovemaking session and the pregnancy that brought her to the hospital. She and Dave made it a custom not to check the child's sex before birth. This was meant to be a surprise to them, and for the first 3 times, it surprised them. The 4th child didn't have that effect, and Diana hoped the 5th would stay. Congratulations, Diana. It is a girl. Her world paused. Diana fought the tears that stung the side of her eyes. It was a clash of emotions as she opened her arms for the midwife to drop the child on her bosom. She held onto the child and watched it suck, and her heart went out to it as she did. The little girl was hungry and needed warmth, too, for she grabbed her mother tight, creating a bond between mother and daughter. Days went by, and the little girl grew up. She had the brightest smile ever, and her laughter made the house come alive. Even though they nursed the fear that Amelia may take the same road as the other girls, Diana and Dave never stopped loving her. This time, Diana walked with Amelia instead of walking on the sandy beach alone, watching the waves of the Atlantic Ocean. On days when she didn't go, she and Amelia hung out in the kiddies' park. It was always fun for the both of them. When Amelia turned 6, something happened. Diana was in the kitchen cooking while Amelia watched her. It was like every other day after school. The talk was about what had happened in school earlier. Diana listened with one ear, while the other listened to what was frying in the pan. Derek said he wanted to be a doctor at the career day in school today. He was dressed in a smart blue uniform. He held a stethoscope with which he touched my wrist to listen to my pulse. "Oh, really?" Diana asked in feigned surprise. "Yes, I was watching him. Rose said she wanted to be a pilot. I like the cap she wore." Amelia handed a plate to her mother. "What about you? What do you want to become?" Diana asked her daughter. She flipped the pancake in the pan as she waited for a response. When there was none, she looked towards Amelia. The little girl had a blank look on her face. "Amelia, darling, why are you quiet?" Diana asked. There was no response from Amelia. She seemed to be staring into space. Diana's heart skipped a beat. The whole thing looked like it was about to happen again. She knew what to expect next, so she reached out and turned off the cooker. Her lips trembled as she took 2 steps toward her daughter. "Mom?" Amelia's voice floated through the air. Diana stopped short, her eyes on her daughter's face. "I love you, Mom. Everything is going to be fine. I'm not going away as my sisters did." The words fell out slowly from the little girl's mouth. She stopped staring into space and turned her gaze on her mother with her ever-contagious smile and blue eyes. Diana didn't know what to say. She just walked to her daughter, grabbed her, and held her tight. No one, not she, not Dave, mentioned the other girls in the house. Diana had 1,001 questions, but she didn't ask. She didn't know what Amelia saw and didn't know if she should believe what Amelia had said about staying. She had grown used to having joyous and happy moments in short bursts. Some lasted as long as 6 years, and here's the little child promising to stay longer than that. Amelia grew up into a beautiful woman, kind like her mother, did well in school and sports, and spent her spare time walking along the beach and staring into the ocean. She would sit on the balcony with Diana in the evenings and point at the stars. She didn't outgrow her fascination with the sea and starry nights. And whenever her mother was tired, she would help update the blog. During one of her long reads into what Diana had been writing about in the past, she stumbled upon the discovery that she had 4 sisters before. Amelia only asked after them once and never bothered about them again. All that mattered to her was Diana and Dave finally finding the happiness that eluded them when their marriage was young and beautiful.